We've got biology, geology, some natural sciences, all in this presentation. So hopefully there's a little bit of something for everybody in here. So Wisconsin has a lot of really unique, beautiful environments. I was walking around this nature center this morning, and this is one of Wisconsin's nature center gems. There's so many little different habitats right here at Maywood, just on a 1 mile circuit. It's really interesting to see. It's a ton of diversity. We've got everything from deep, dark woods filled with old growth trees to open plains, oak savannas, and dry goat prairies. Sand dunes along Lake Michigan, and ephemeral pools in the middle of the forest. We've got wetlands brimming with species of fish, reptiles, amphibians, and aquatic plants. But not as all well here in Wisconsin. Invasive species are moving in. If we're not careful, and if we don't learn about what we're looking at today, this might be part of our future in a big way. Monocultures, invasive species, managed lands that look like this. This is 2 species right here. This is Norway spruce, planted for logging, and a 100% understory of garlic mustard. Our wetlands are in trouble. Invasive species like emerald ash borer, Dutch elm disease are coming in and killing the overstory of these trees. Wetland plants are moving in, invasives like reed canary grass and hybrid cattail, taking over the entire bottom of these forests. So I'm concerned about the little creepy crawlies that depend on pristine woods. We have another reptile monitor here today. She introduced herself to me before. She would probably recognize this critter. This is a blue-spotted salamander. Maybe you have some of these here in Maywood. But they absolutely require those ephemeral pools to be in good condition for successful reproduction. The future of management in Wisconsin depends on you guys. We have the youth, the next generation in this room with us. It'll be up to you guys to keep carrying this forward. So something special about Johnson's Nursery is that we're here in Wisconsin, and we source all of our plants from our surrounding environments. I've grown different species from all these different locations for the last 17 years, and we've made lots of observations about them. Prior to me, there was a gentleman by the name of Mike Yanni, and he did the same thing for 40 years. So now combined, we have a 57-year history of growing native plants in southeast Wisconsin and eastern Wisconsin. Can anyone tell me what we're looking at here? Class participation? Sir?
The United States.
Hey, great job. That is accurate. And you see all those little other lines drawn. Oh, we got all these other little lines drawn here. Those are county distributions. This is a range map. So some of you guys might be very familiar with this. This might be a new concept to others. I'll try to span both worlds here. Whenever you see a plant outside, a native species, it has a native distribution. The habitats it lives in, survives in, is able to reproduce in. All of the light green are historical records of where that plant was found natively. You might notice something about this native plant. If someone can tell me what species of plant this is, I'll give them a $10 gift card for Johnson's Nursery. Anyone want to take a stab at it? There's some professionals here today. Maybe, maybe not.
No one knows.
Close. This is white oak. So something as simple as white oak.
I would have guessed that.
That was your chance. But something as simple as white oak is found from Minnesota all the way to Maine, Florida to East Texas. What do you think would happen if you had a landscape you were taking care of and you wanted to plant a white oak and you weren't careful about where you sourced that white oak? That white oak could come from anywhere in the eastern United States. What do you think would happen to a white oak if you brought it up from Tennessee and planted it here in Maywood? Most likely it would suffer. Our winters are too harsh, our soils aren't quite acidic enough, and it would probably die. A lot of the oaks we see, when people call us and try to get recommendations on what to do for their sick tree, a lot of their trees end up looking like this because they're not careful on where they source their plants. We know this because we've done it. We've grown plants that are sourced from Wisconsin, and a percentage of them are always yellow, not growing well, languishing. And what we want to do at the nursery is we want to get rid of all the trees like this. We want to throw those away, cut them down, burn them, and we want to keep ones like this. Vigorous, happy, dark green, growing. And then any seeds we pick off those happy trees, we give them an accession number, which is a metal tag that sticks with that crop for the life of the crop at the nursery. So as long as you buy a native plant from Johnson's Nursery, if you know what year you bought it in, I can tell you what county that tree came from. It really does make a difference over time. Picture on the left, this is a northern red oak crop. You can see they're all about 6 to 7 feet tall. My gal Lynn here is only about 4'11", so she's really good for like a plant model. All your plants look really big. And this is a crop of northern red oak, the same species, but it was picked further west and further north. And you can see that particular population was not ready to grow here in eastern Wisconsin. So some of the techniques that we use at Johnson's is oak root pruning. Now, you guys all know what acorns are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Students in back, you heard of acorns before? Have you heard of a taproot before? All right, so acorns make taproots. In the wild, that's a good thing because those taproots allow that acorn to be secured into place. It's got deep access to moisture, and if a squirrel tries to pull it out, it can't get the whole thing. The tree stays put. Now at a nursery, we're doing unnatural things. We are moving plants, which they never really evolved to do. So what we do at the nursery is we actually cut that taproot in its infancy, treat it with a rooting hormone, and then cause it to branch much higher on the stem. This additional fibrous root structure allows us to transplant our oak trees at a much higher success rate compared to others. Because even though that taproot is great in nature, if you come in with a machine, you cut this all off right about here, how much root is that plant going to have versus how much root that plant will have? Those extra roots help that tree survive transplant. By the end of our process, this is how rooty that plant is. And here's just some pictures of what we consider successful transplanted oaks. Here's our oak. This is the other guys. Some regional differences between these plants, just to kind of illustrate the difference in ecotype that we're concerned about at the nursery. This is called a tupelo. It's a plant that's found further south, kind of like northern Illinois. And this one was planted at the state fairgrounds, or sorry, the Summerfest grounds in Milwaukee. It's been this size for just about 17 years. It's not dead, but it's not growing. It was there when I moved to that county, and it's still there. The same size as it was when they got planted. So let's talk a little bit about what plants would work really well here. And some of you students were out there nature walking today. You might have seen some of these here today. Have you guys had your Wisconsin geology unit yet? Maybe? No, not quite? Can anyone tell me what this map shows? Yeah, I think I heard it a couple times. Niagara Escarpment, Niagara Range. So that's a really interesting geological feature that really makes our region special, our soil special, our environment special. And it's a unique set of plants that grow on top of that range. I forget how many billions of years ago it was, but there was an ancient sea that was right above Michigan. And at the shore of that ancient sea, bicarbonates from dead shells would accumulate, miles deep, maybe not miles, many, many feet deep. And over time it solidified into dolomite, and that dolomite was harder than the surrounding limestone. As the other limestone slowly wore away, it exposed that dolomite ridge. And if there's a geologist in here, they can correct me if I get any details wrong. But that makes our soils really high pH. pH is just a measure of the alkalinity or acidity of the soil. You can still see it in the ridges around here. We're famous for our lime kilns, our lime kiln roads, our quarries, our limestone. Crushed limestone is a huge export of eastern Wisconsin. Some of our parks, like this one here, you can actually see like the old quarries that we dug up. And before human settlement, this was mostly a sugar maple beech forest dominated area. So it rarely encountered fire. Every once in a while it did, but pretty rarely. The areas west of here were burned more often. Since European settlement, they've been logged approximately 2 or 3 times. And we have a buildup of organic matter and biology on top of that limestone to make the topsoil more acidic. So that's why you can get things like American beech, that's this plant here. That plant can grow here really successfully, even though it doesn't like high alkalinity soils, if there's enough organic matter for it to live on. Logging, farming, grazing brought that alkalinity up a bit. And then the Industrial Revolution actually brought the acidity up a little bit because of all the acid rain brought it in for decades. We have a lakeshore that's pretty near here. It has sandy dunes and cliffs, and it's got a unique set of flora all to its own. So now we can dive into some interesting native plants for our area. This is an amelanchier, or a serviceberry. This is probably my #1 favorite tree for overall features that appeal to human beings. And not only does it appeal to humans, it's really helpful for wildlife year-round. In the spring, it's got a bunch of white flowers. The white flowers give away to these purple fruits, purplish blue. They taste like blueberries if you ever get a chance to eat them. They're really tasty. And in fall, it has this deep red or orange fall color. It makes for a great small specimen tree. Oh yes, question?
Oh, sorry, what did you say the one on the left was?
These are both serviceberry.
Oh, alright.
So this is serviceberry in late spring on the left, and serviceberry in fall on the right. Makes a great small tree, really nice as a multi-stem form tree. As far as wildlife value, this adds pollinator flowers for spring, valuable to pollinators. These fruits are relished by birds that are starving for fruit. There's a lot of birds that prefer fruit as their main food source, and this is one of the first plants that's able to offer them actual berries. Another name for serviceberry is Juneberry. So they make their berries in June, very early. This one's pretty iconic. Can you even tell me what this one is? White pine? This is white pine, correct. So this is Pinus strobus. It's a little bit rare in Sheboygan County now, but you can still find it on like some of the ridges, especially as you approach the lake. If you have a slightly acidic soil, this is a great option for you. An evergreen plant gets very, very tall. This would be a large tree. Whereas the serviceberry kind of tops out at 25, 30 feet tall. White pine can reach almost 100 feet into the air.
Holy cow.
It's really good for wildlife because it offers a windbreak, a place for them to nest in summer that's really dense and protected. And it makes cones with really nutrient-dense seeds on the interior. This is sugar maple. This is Wisconsin's state tree. The little path right outside the nature center here, they've got a bunch of really nice specimen sugar maples that are this big around. Probably 150, close to 150 years old. I'm guessing the original forest that was here got logged one time, and then the trees that came back after that are those trees. Beautiful fall color, useful to humans because you can make maple syrup out of it. And they're really tolerant. They're one of the best urban trees for city use. So you don't need a really rich soil to plant these, you just need any old soil to do. This is American beech. It's got the very smooth elephant skin kind of bark. And a lot of times it'll have these kind of tan leaves hanging on it through the winter. Sheboygan has quite a few areas with beech trees. This is the westernmost population of American beech in the US, which is kind of interesting. It's a really slow growing, densely growing tree. So it's really good for habitat structure. It lasts a long time in forest by its ability to sucker up from its root system. So even if you were to chop this tree down, it would send up new baby trees from the roots. There's a few of those on the path out here as well, a couple beeches. Question?
What is the name of the tree again?
American beech.
American beech. Very interesting.
Is there another question? Question?
How do I spell the beech part? Is it
Beech, B-E-E-C-H.
Okay.
The birches. So we've got paper birch, a couple of those around here as well if you wanted to see a mature specimen. This plant is famous for its beautiful white bark. Planted in combination with wild grasses, it's quite nice. Birches are really important for wildlife because they make very, very tiny seeds. So really, birds that are really small, like the small seed-eating birds really appreciate birch trees, like finches and sparrows and stuff. Very useful for them. This is an early successional tree, and it's enhanced by burning or logging. So if you guys ever get a chance to go up north, a lot of the forests up there have a paper birch as their main component. They don't mind being disturbed. Its counterpart, yellow birch, hates being disturbed. This tree species does not tolerate burning, it does not tolerate much for logging, and it has a hard time coming back to a site once it's been removed. It's got a yellow flaky bark, but very similar to paper birch as far as leaf when it seeds out. It likes to grow in kind of like low, wet, mossy, swampy areas. And it's kind of famous for growing on top of like stumps. So if you ever go to like some of the older county parks around here and you see a tree in the air, it's got like a hollow space underneath the root system. And it's about yay high off the ground. A lot of those are yellow birches that germinated on top of the stumps that the first settlers took down. And they're all handsaw height. Modern logging, they cut the stumps a lot lower. But you can tell, like, that's how far they were willing to bend over. They're all the same height. This is tamarack. This is Wisconsin's only native deciduous conifer. It makes cones just like a pine tree, but it loses its needles every fall. It has a beautiful golden fall color right before the needles drop. This is a really good habitat tree. It stays fairly compact, you know, it's like a nice narrow tree, and it grows to about 60 feet tall, which is pretty reasonable. I think they're criminally underutilized in modern landscapes because everyone thinks that they only live in bogs, but in this case, that's only where it's competitive. In its seedling stage, it's really, really slow. It grows like an inch a year, next year is 2 inches, next year is 2.5. But then all of a sudden, its root system gets big enough and it takes off. And then it can grow like 2 to 3 feet in a year. So even though it's not competitive in upland forests, it can grow very fast if given a chance. So if you want to plant a tree and like just be surprised with how fast it grows, buy like a tamarack like anywhere in that size range, and it'll grow 2 or 3 feet a year for you. Very quick grower. One of the big lessons today that I want you guys to take home is just plant an oak. If you guys have any inkling on like becoming naturalists or taking care of landscapes, I would encourage you to find a book called Bringing Nature Home. It's by Doug Tallamy, really eye-opening book, and it makes the case that we should be planting as many native plants as possible. Not only to keep those native plants around, but to serve all of the different insects that depend on those trees. Because in turn, birds use those insects, and it's like just insane factoids like left and right about how many insects birds need. And you guys are seeing on the news like populations of insects are going down. That's a big concern right now because they're the bottom of the food chain. That's what all of us depend on as well. But don't quote me on it, but it's something like even a chickadee needs like 200 caterpillars a day as a little baby chickadee before it becomes an adult. And then like it's something like 23,000 is what it needs to become an adult. So it's an insane amount of caterpillars that we have to like create out there to keep a baby chickadee alive. Yes, question?
Who's the book by?
Doug Tallamy.
Thank you.
It's a D-O-U-G, and then Tallamy is T-A-L-L-A-M-Y. But it's all these tiny interactions that he scientifically documents, and it's just amazing. So this is northern red oak, Quercus rubra. A couple of them on the trail out here. This is Wisconsin's most shade-tolerant oak. This is the oak tree you would plant in sugar maple forest. If you've got a shady place in your yard, but you still want an oak tree, this is the one to plant. It's also Wisconsin's fastest growing oak. It grows several feet a year. It's got these deep green, many-lobed leaves with points at the end. The acorns are relished by white-tailed deer, turkeys, and other critters, squirrels. So they're really important for wildlife in our area. This thing right here, this kind of funny colored thing, is a wasp gall. So it's a wasp that lays an egg in the plant, and the plant's response is to make that funny looking gall. And it tastes bad, so the little insect inside that gall is protected. And when that wasp hatches, it eats aphids. So aphids are what attacks northern red oak and sucks the life out of them. But that wasp helps control the aphids. So it's like housing its own security investment. It's got a beautiful kind of orangish red fall color. One easy way to recognize it is it has these long, kind of like flat-topped stripes or ridges along its trunk. And it very often has this really wide root base, which is pretty distinct. Another species of oak is black oak. It's like the red oak, but for the prairie. So this plant grows out in the open grasslands. It tends to be a little bit shorter, a little bit rounder. The leaves are a little bit more pointed, and they have kind of a fuzziness to the leaf. In spring, they're kind of this attractive, almost pinky color. It almost looks like a flower when the tree is all starting to bloom out. But you can see that kind of fuzziness on the leaf, and that helps the tree slow down its transpiration. So it doesn't use as much water, so it can be more tolerant of drought-like scenarios. A close relative is northern pin oak. Northern pin oak is like the sand area red oak. It has extremely dissected leaves. That means it has really deep leaf margins. It's smaller, it's shrubbier, and it tends to live a lot less long than northern pin oak. So like an old northern pin oak would be maybe 75 to 100 years old versus northern red oak, which can be to 200. The classic oak is white oak. It's the longest lived, very slow growing. It's relatively particular to soil chemistry. And a lot of times this is what you see persisting in sites, because even the first ancestors of ours that came here like respected this tree and left it be. A lot of times when you have a farm field, this is a fun story, and there's just one big oak in the middle of it, it's not because they wanted to keep that tree necessarily, but that's called a stumper. And that's what they used. They used this tree to tie winches to pull up the stumps for all the other trees they did cut down. So a lot of times you'll drive by a big giant field and there's just one big tree in the middle of it. That's the stumper. Like, why'd they leave that tree? And that's what the expression, like, I'm stumped. How do we get rid of that last tree? I'm stumped. they couldn't, so they left that one there.
Very humorous.
In fall, it's got a nice red fall color again. And on the white oak group, all of the leaves are rounded. Swamp white oak is like the white oak for the swamp. It's a much faster growing tree. It's less particular to soil chemistry. This is probably the most popular oak for city foresters, just because it doesn't care where you plant it as much. Very tall growing. It does not have red fall color. This one has a yellow fall color. Oftentimes it has this broad pyramidal shape as it gets very, very old. There's one in the field. It's one of my favorites there. And lastly, we have bur oak. In my mind, this is Wisconsin's most iconic oak tree because it's the dominant tree in the oak savanna ecosystem, which is an incredibly rare ecosystem right now because it's either been turned into subdivisions or corn. In its youth, it's actually quite narrow, and as it ages, it starts to shoot out some lateral branches. It's got this really corky bark, and that's this plant's natural defense against fire. This plant evolved with ecosystems that burned on the regular, every couple of years or even every year. So this extra corky bark helps those small stems survive and continue growing. It's kind of the exact opposite of black oak and northern pin oak. Those two species also evolved with fire, but they were more willing to let their main stem die and resprout from the base. So northern pin oak and black oak, they sprout from the base vigorously after burning, even though they lose their main stem. But bur oak, it keeps its main stem. So it ends up being the biggest oak in our state. It's got this really distinct fiddle-shaped leaf with a big top on the tip, and then it's really skinny on the waist as you approach the petiole. Just a plant in the wild. Chinkapin oak is the oddball in Wisconsin. It has very un-oak-like leaves, just these small toothed leaves, and it's got a really tiny acorn. It's a really rare plant in this part of the state, but there's actually a few populations in Sheboygan County. and they're all associated with Native American populations. So as the Native Americans were moving across the landscape, they brought seeds from further east. And they loved this tree because this is like the #1 wildlife oak in North America. Everything goes for these, like from blue jays, turkeys, deer, everything loves chinkapin oak more than any other acorn. It's got a really nice set of fall color. And the reason why you want to plant an oak is because oaks support the most different species of caterpillars and insects. So if you have like a chance to make a big impact on wildlife, planting an oak is what you do. It's also most likely going to be there long after you plant it. So if you plant like little perennials and little shrubs at your house and you plant an oak tree too, the next homeowner might not be as into native plants as you guys, and they might remove the perennials and they might remove the shrubs, but it's a lot less likely that they're going to remove a oak tree that's this big. Namely because of cost, and they do make shade for homes.
How big does the chinkapin oak get?
Good question. It's a relatively small oak. So that's one of them there. One of the biggest ones I've ever seen, and it's probably only 50-ish feet tall, and the diameter of that plant is probably 2 feet. So it's a fairly slow-growing oak tree. Pretty small. So size is a consideration, but you still want to plant an oak tree. I would suggest either chinkapin oak or northern pin oak, because those are the two smallest ones. So milkweed, you guys probably know the story on milkweed. It supports monarch butterflies. That's some simple thing right there. Red milkweed has these awesome red flowers, grows in low areas, swampy areas. Common milkweed is really aggressive, so it spreads pretty rapidly. It might not be the best yard plant, but if you have like a big open area, this is a perfect plant to take up a lot of space. At Johnson's, we try to educate our clients as much as possible on the right plant for the right space. And for us, this plant is great for filling space. We have a lot of contractors that have like big areas to fill, and they need to fill it with native plants as fast as possible. Then you want to bring milkweed onto your team. If you have a very small yard, common milkweed is probably not for you unless you're willing to pull out lots of its stems every year. And I actually have common milkweed in my 1/4 acre lot. So just a small normal yard. And I just pull out the stems I don't want every season. It only takes probably 15 minutes. And in the fall, you're able to see the pods, all the different animals that use it. My kid really likes it. There she found a monarch. My neighbors don't like it too much because some of it's seeded onto their property, but that's okay. They like the monarchs too. If space is a consideration, you can always go smaller. This is called whorled milkweed. It's got this really fine texture, and it's just like a micro milkweed. Here it is. This is about 18 inches tall.
What's the first name of that?
Whorled, with a W-H. W-H-O-R-L-E-D.
Don't rabbits really eat that, really like that? I mean,
Rabbits will eat it. They will eat it for sure. If you did have rabbits, what I would recommend is cage it for the first year, and then it'll start to send out runners and kind of pop out throughout your garden bed, and then it won't be such a big problem because the rabbits will get some of them, but they won't get all of them, and then you have a couple steps to work with, which is really all this plant needs. This is Pharyngium yuccifolium, which is rattlesnake master. It's actually a relative of carrots, so if you ever look at a carrot flower, it almost looks exactly like this. And it's got this really kind of a spiny, arid plant look to it. Like it almost looks like a yucca, thus the name yucca foamy. Broad, strappy leaves with sharp, spiny teeth. This is a really good pollinator plant, really interesting looking. And if you're looking for interesting seed heads in your garden, this is unbeatable. This is agastache. This is one of the best plants for pollinators overall. It attracts like bees, butterflies. In the fall, it makes seeds that birds like to eat. This is a clear wing moth, which is kind of cool. If you ever see a clear wing moth, it flies around like a hummingbird. So it just like buzzes by and then dips its proboscis into the flower and flies away. Nodding wild onion is another good choice for the small yard. It stays fairly short, only 18 inches tall. It does spread by seed, which may be a problem if you just let it all go all the time. But if you just pluck the seed heads off before it goes to seed, you are able to control the population very easily. Landscaping with native plants is a little bit different than traditional landscaping. Traditional landscaping is like keeping your plants in a zoo. You have a sea of mulch, and then you put just a couple plants in it. And we never let the plants touch. You don't want that to happen, that would be weird. But if you go into the wilds, plants always touch. They're like bumping into each other, spreading this way or that. This species is encountering competition here, competition there. And that natural competition keeps them in check. So I like to kind of promote that, like let your plants touch. Don't worry about that. Let them fill in, and then that'll become your landscape. Beautiful purple flowers, actually edible. They taste like onions, because they're onions. This is a great filler. This is prairie dropseed. Another good one for the small yard because it only gets like 18 inches, 2 feet tall. And it kind of has this like extra fluffy looking texture that really fills in. This is a great plant to put on the border of your garden. This very rarely escapes, like it doesn't seed around very easily. It actually grows very slowly on the open prairie, which is its natural environment. So it makes a really great border, just because it's low, it's neat, and it's nice and fine texture. Pagoda dogwood. This is a native small tree or large shrub, however you want to put it. It's got these blue fruits on these red bracts, and you'll find amongst what the birds are out there looking to eat, the red and blue or red and white combination really sticks out to birds, and that's what they seek out. I would like someone to do some science one day, like which birds like the blue ones and which birds like the white ones, because there's got to be a difference because they've been selected clearly down the middle. But great kind of tiered shape, like a pagoda structure. Very architectural. This is dwarf bush honeysuckle. There's a bunch of that planted right outside this building. This is a great filling in plant. It's a small shrub. It gets about 2 feet tall. It has these really nice reddish or maroonish new growth to it, and teeny tiny yellow flowers in early summer. It spreads below ground, so you can actually see like some of the suckers popping out of the holes in the bottom of the pot down here. But it does spread over time, so that's why it's a really good filler. This is an American plum. Well, actually, that's good. But this is an American plum on the right. You can see all the plums that it dropped, and this little critter was feeding on the plums when I was picking it, so I took a picture. But it has these little sacs of, like these colorful sacs on the back of its back. And when you like bump into it and make it angry, they inflate those sacs and they like punch up. So it's kind of freaky because they look weird. But it's a neat little native bug. American plum has a really nice white flower in spring, and you can eat these plums. You can make them into jellies and jams, and you can just eat them raw. Witch hazel is a really great shrub for fall because it's got these beautiful yellow flowers, but almost everything else is done. things are done blooming, done leafing out, they're dropping their leaves, and that's when witch hazel blooms. And it's got a really interesting relationship with its pollinator, because its pollinator is like this little brown moth, and as you guys know from your biology classes, that moths are cold-blooded. But this moth is one of the only moths that's warm-blooded. So it's made a relationship with the singular warm-blooded moth, and now it pollinates at the very end of the year when all the other moths are asleep. So that one moth species is able to pollinate witch hazels. And you can see they have flowers even when it's snowing on. And you'll find those little moths going and pollinating even under snow. The way they're able to keep their body temperature up is they just constantly vibrate their wings and they create their own heat. This is gray dogwood, Cornus racemosa. This has chosen the white berry path. Very appealing to birds. I forgot to mention on pagoda dogwood, but dogwoods in general are really important to migrating birds. If we're trying to support wildlife, keep our birds around, this is a really good one. Most berries are composed of sugar and water, but dogwoods, pagoda dogwood, gray dogwood, Rhodosia dogwood, all of their berries are really high in fat content. And if you ever pick a dogwood berry and like squish it between your fingers, it's like bacon grease. It's like white and like filmy, and it's kind of like fat or lotion on your hands. If you ever wash them, like we do on a commercial scale at our nursery, you actually have like all this fat that floats to the top of the water, and you can actually skim the fat off. It's like almost the texture of butter. So it's a really fatty berry, really good for birds that need to fly a long distance, because fat breaks down in your body slower than sugar, and you can go a further distance with that. This is American elderberry. This is a big crop of them there at the nursery. It's got these big pom-pom white flowers, and if they're pollinated, they give way to a big panicle of dark blue or blackish fruits. This is a really good wildlife plant for midsummer. This is one of the only native plants that blooms in late June. In Wisconsin, we have kind of like a two-phase main bloom. There's the spring bloomers, and there's like the late summer into fall bloomers. But there's actually not a lot of blooming happening late June, July. So this kind of helps fill the gap, helps with that continuity, keeps pollinators going. And despite having that late blooming flower, it actually seeds pretty early. So the fruits are ready by like the end of July. So from bloom to finished berry is like less than a month, which is interesting too. This picture got misplaced. This was an American plum. I was looking for that picture before. But beautiful white flowers. This is Viburnum casinoides, or witherrot viburnum. This is another blue fruiting plant on a red bract, so it's a blue fruiter. This is a really good plant for a small yard because it only gets maybe 4 feet tall, 4 feet wide, and it's got a neat feature every time of the year. Spring, it has white flowers. Summer, blueberries. Fall, it's got beautiful red fall color, and in winter, it makes like kind of a neat little like tuft of itself, like it holds onto its leaves and keeps its branches really close together, and it's got a smooth tan bark, and wildlife just goes crazy for that. It's like a little apartment for them. So it's interesting year round. This is butterfly milkweed, probably our most popular milkweed, so probably the hardest one to keep alive. Any gardeners in this room might have tried this plant in their yard. I would like to hear a success story if anyone's got one. We got one right there. So what kind of soils do you have?
It's, I think, a little more clay, not sandy, but I would say pretty medium.
Pretty medium.
But what happens is it comes up really late, I think, and then all of a sudden it'll come up in a different place.
Mm.
But I don't think I see it pop up until well into, sometimes into early June.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty typical
Okay,
experience.
and I transplanted it too and had a lot of success.
Yeah. So you must have like just the right soil for it to be able to reproduce. Most people that we sell this to lose this plant after a year or two. And if it's not able to reproduce at that site, it's gone. So this is a fairly long-lived perennial if it's on like a really sandy or gravelly soil. But here in Sheboygan, you don't have that much sand, or you don't have that much gravel.
No, and I don't think I would say I got the sandy.
Right, so the fact that you have a reproduced population is pretty unique. But most people don't see them again. So you must be doing something right, whatever you're doing. But it's got these orange flowers. It's one of the few orange blooming plants in Wisconsin's flora. Again, supports, monarch butterflies. Whenever you find it in its natural environment, it's really a treat. It's a very interesting plant to find. It only gets to be like maybe 2 feet tall at the most. Usually it's a lot shorter than that, and just stacks of orange flowers. This is St. John's wort. This is a plant that's recently become very popular in the landscape trade. Johnson's has been growing it for years, but I think the reason it's becoming popular in our area specifically is it's one of the best hosts for rusty patch bumblebee. Some of you guys know rusty patch bumblebee is a federally endangered bumblebee. It has experienced a drastic decline in population over the past 50 years. They used to be able to find it from Wisconsin all the way to Pennsylvania, but now it's pretty much only in Wisconsin and Minnesota. And a few other spots, maybe like Ohio or Michigan, something like that. But that bee, for whatever reason, seems to love St. John's wort. It's a really short plant. It's only 3 or 4 feet tall. It's got these bluish green leaves. Gives way to these kind of two-tone flowers. It's got like a yellowy petal and a slightly more orangey center, which is kind of interesting. In winter, they make little tiny seed capsules that birds, they like eat right out of the capsules like it's like a little cup. They stick their beak into the capsule, they stick their tongue out, they like get a bunch of seeds on their tongue, and fly to the next capsule. It's pretty fun. So good wildlife plants supports a really rare species. And is the right size for any home garden. One of the biggest populations of rusty patch bumblebee is in Milwaukee. Like the city of Milwaukee has a ton of these bumblebees around. And I've got this plant in my yard, and every year for the past 10 years I've had rusty patch bumblebees visit my yard. This is spikenard. It's got these red and green fruits that happen at the same time on the plant, which makes it kind of interesting. This is one of Wisconsin's biggest perennials. It's a shade plant. It's got a huge fleshy root. And it gets to be like 5-6 feet tall. Panicles of fruits in the fall like this. Pretty interesting. Another plant for prairies would be the liatris root. There's quite a few species of liatris. There's a liatris for every situation, for wet, for dry, for big, for small spaces. And they're all kind of a variation on a theme. Tall spikes of purple flowers. Very attractive to wildlife. They're in the Asteraceae family, so that means their seeds are really valuable to fall migrating birds, finches, sparrows. This is Echinacea pallida. This is pale purple coneflower. It's actually Wisconsin's only native coneflower. The other one is technically not native. It's found just south of the border into northern Illinois. But this is the one that we find typically around here. Very rare in our state naturally, but widely planted, which is good. In this case, it's like one of those stories, like I think the nursery industry might actually be helping this species out. Because if it wasn't for the nursery industry, this would be in about 5 counties in Wisconsin. But now it's like almost a commonplace landscape plant. Columbine, great plant for the shade. Hummingbird and sphinx moth pollinated. Clearwing moth pollinated. anything with a really long proboscis. If you guys ever need a hit of sugar, you can always rip off the tops of these flowers, and there's like a little sugar packet in the back of every flower.
It's always good.
And it tastes kind of like a pixie stick. Just kind of funny.
It's so fine to me.
But really long flowers, they expect the whatever animal is pollinating them, like a hummingbird or a moth. They've got to reach all the way up to the end of that flower to find that sugary snack. And when they reach past, that's when they brush up against the pollen, and then they go to the next flower, and that pollen gets transferred onto the other flower, making pollination happen. Prairie smoke, I've got a little sample of this over here on the counter. Great plant for a yard, short stature, pink flowers, really early blooming. A lot of times they'll bloom before the frost, so like May 1, a lot of times you'll see these bloom. In the fall, nice rosettes of red fall color. Asters, always important. Many species of asters tend to be pretty weedy. So a lot of times they're kind of relegated to like the big spaces or like native seeding areas, true prairies. But there are quite a few species that fit into smaller spaces. There's probably about 150 species of asters and goldenrods in Wisconsin, and some of them are only like 2 feet tall and they hardly ever spread. So we've got a whole list of those kind of asters at the nursery. We don't have time to go through them all today, but one of them is Riddell's goldenrod. This is an endangered plant in Wisconsin. When it's growing, it looks like corn, which is kind of interesting, different for a goldenrod. And then it makes these little kind of like panicles of yellow flowers out of the axils of the leaves. Very small, very well behaved, good for yards. But tons of different species available. I was asked to touch a little bit on container planting. One thing we're doing at the nursery is these floating islands. So this is a way for you to get more plants into your yard, especially if you are in charge of or if you own a body of water, down to a little pond or like a creek or a river, a dock, something like that. We're able to plant up these islands, they're called islands, but they're actually like a 3D printed matrix of recycled plastic that is designed specifically to float. And they float for, they're supposed to be lifetime guaranteed floaters. You anchor it to a point on your property, and we can plant it up with any number of species like this and get those plants to grow on your water. What's cool is we can take those, float them out into the pond, and that 3D matrix of plastic allows the roots to penetrate the water, pull excess nitrogen, excess phosphorus out of the water, and turn it into flowers. So it helps your water quality, it brings a little bit of shade to your water, so it helps it keep it just a hair cooler. And the company that makes those black plastic islands has a really thorough amount of science that they've done, so they can tell you, like, if your body of water is this big, you need to put this much island square footage on it to make whatever difference you're trying to do. Whether it's reduce your phosphorus by 100 parts per million, or if you're just looking to cool your water by 6 degrees because you like to grow walleye instead of goldfish. So hibiscus, they grow on there. It's a native hibiscus. Nice variation in color. Cardinal flower grows on these. Beautiful red flower. And then you can also do native gardening in small spaces. You don't need to be in charge of a prairie to have a prairie at home. I've got a really nice prairie garden in my front yard. Some people only have an apartment. And you can still have native plants planted up together, adding benefit, adding wildlife value in a very small space. So this is a combination. This is a bur oak, American filbert, world milkweed, prairie drop seed, all just kind of packed together. Someone was looking, they had a garden, they were aging out of their property, they had to move into assisted living, but they were native plant enthusiasts. So they asked us to do a quick design for them for a pot that this wide and that deep. We threw that together and we said, here you go, this is the cost, and we'll even plant it up for you. She liked it so much that we had to do like 5 of them. So then we kept going, and this is something my folks love to do, especially at certain times of year, like fall. You get to like go out there and find like neat combos to put together, and then we were able to use these plants and plant up the assisted living space. She convinced the managers there to like plant these all over the place. So what started as her deck had 1. Eventually, like the whole assisted living place had like 1 on every deck. There was a couple of curmudgeons out there that didn't want bees, but most people signed up for one. So there's here is a staghorn sumac, even fruiting. They had birds eating off of this all winter. This is a elm leaf goldenrod. Some native Amazonia back there. Here's that rattlesnake master in combination with the musclewood, more elm leaf goldenrod, and some different species of prairie grass. I think that was prairie dropseed. This was an eastern red cedar in combination with winterberry holly. This is dwarf white goldenrod. Nice combination. And what's kind of nice is when you're growing stuff in a container, you do have to select plants that are tolerant to that situation. But also, if they're able to water it enough, if they're watering on the regular, you can combine plants that really would never be together in the wild. So, eastern red cedar in combination with winterberry holly. You would very rarely see that in the wild, but in a container, they're both equally happy. So you can put them together there. We've done bog planters before. So these are native bog species like ladies' tress orchids, and these are pitcher plants there. Yep, thank you, because the name wasn't coming to me for some reason. So these are predatory plants, carnivorous plants. They're shaped like a kind of a tube with a lip on top. So insects crawl in, but they don't crawl out. They become food at the base, and that's how the plants get nitrogen. And we've done planters that are just like concrete boxes in cityscapes like this. They wanted to use native prairie plants in this like waste area. It was just overgrown, littered, not great. Some ancient like yews were there. There's homeless people sleeping underneath it. So they took the yews out, they cleaned it up, and then they planted some really hardy prairie plants in that setting. So in this case, we have this little blue stem. It's kind of got this reddish coloration. And this is a showy goldenrod in combination back here with Indian grass. So that I thought was pretty good. Here's a June grass in combination with Liatris. Here's large flowered penstemon. And on June 6th, if you're really interested in planting natives in containers, Johnson's is hosting I think 2 of them. We're hosting one meeting with Save Our Songbirds, the Southern Songbird Alliance, and one with the Wild Ones. And it's going to be hosted at Johnson's Nursery. So you can come down, you can build your own planter, and go home with a native planter. It'll be taught by Eric Menges, who's a native plant enthusiast in our area. Very skilled individual. Used to be a weather guy.
Yep.
Switched to the native plant world. Here's if you guys ever get to Manitowoc, they have a stellar set of planters in their downtown area. So if anyone has a voice in Sheboygan, let them know that Manitowoc's way ahead of you guys. But they took the opportunity to plant up all their downtown planting areas with native perennials. They got a grant, so it was no extra money on their end except for like paying an intern once a summer to go weed and kind of maintain the stuff. Water for establishment, weed for maintenance. They got to select a whole variety of native plants to plant in their downtown area. I thought they ended up looking pretty nice. nice. So if you guys want something like that in Sheboygan, maybe worth your funds. This is the Maritime Museum in Manitowoc. And this is the picture of a wild four-o'clock. So this is a species I had not grown myself until this year. And every time we plant a new plant, we have an opportunity to learn about what that plant's all about. Wild four-o'clock, I've grown like garden four-o'clocks before, just with my grandma, just an annual. But this is the native species. There's a native perennial four-o'clock. And it makes like a literal carrot looking root, which I did not expect when I signed the crop up to be upshifted to the next size for production. And I took some of the roots apart and wow, they're all like these little orange carrots. But this plant is found in really, really dry situations in the wild. So for us, when we see something like that, then that means this plant is probably another really good candidate for really tough situations like this. So the more we learn about our native species, the better we're able to recommend to you guys the right root, the right plant. This way you get the best outcome for you. So try to stay inspired. I think we're running out of time a little bit here. Stay inspired by the environment around you. Look to nature to come up with your plans for the future. My kid loves my backyard. She's just always enamored walking around there. And I remember planting that. My neighbor has this immaculate, perfect yard. There's nothing in it, it's just lawn. Verdant green year round. And he's like, where's your kid gonna play? And I was like, I don't know, I guess we had different upbringing because I never played in my yard at home. I played in the woods. I played by the creek. I was looking for frogs. I played sports on a field like your yard, but I never played in a yard like that. So she plays in our yard. So all these native wildflowers growing back there. This is my front yard. So even in a small suburban lot, you can make a big difference. You can get a lot of native plants to grow in there. Different species like butterfly milkweed, purple coneflower, St. John's wort in the background, a bur oak I planted. This is my hedgerow, because I didn't want to see my neighbor's yard anymore. He's a great neighbor, by the way, so don't dig on Edwin too much. We have an edible hedge here. So this is American filbert. It makes nuts for us in fall. This is American blackcurrant. It makes berries for us in summer. This is a mint. We can use it in our mint juleps when we want to get drunk. There's high schoolers in here. I apologize. But yeah, use nature as inspiration for your planting. Here's where I got the idea to use those prairie drop seed as a border. A lot of people are like, my native plants are too tall. They flopped over. I had to get rid of them. It's like, well, no, we knew they were going to get tall. What you should have done, and now we all know better, is put these little prairie drop seeds in the front. And that kind of helps hold them back. Gets them out of your path, keeps them upright. They offer support. So these big old oak trees, the big old stumpers, they remember when they used to be an oak savanna. Long ago. And even if you have a tiny space to work with, you can make a huge difference. Whatever you have under your control, you can make beautiful. You can add value to wildlife, people's lives. I mean, that's just straight up beautiful. Just think what a bumblebee thinks of that. Tiny spaces, huge opportunities. I see it everywhere. I hope to see it even more. Everywhere from tiny public spaces like Manitowoc in front of the museum to corporate headquarters like this is Grande Cheese in Fond du Lac. This is the University Garden Arboretum. Yeah, Grande Cheese.
Ooh, I love cheese.
I also like cheese.
Who doesn't like cheese?
This is Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District's filter area. And look how nice that looks planted up with native plants.
Ooh, that's really good. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, this is gonna be mash, isn't it? So stay inspired, do the best you can. I'll take any questions. That's all. Thank you. Any questions, students, gardeners? Yes.
You mentioned some floating blog and so forth.
Yes. Yep, so those floating islands, hold on, maybe whiplash. So those floating islands are manufactured by a company in California, but they ship nationwide. They actually designed the product to be used by the Army Corps of Engineers for like wastewater treatment. But they also decided to make like a consumer ad in their division. So these are like small, they're kind of like bean shaped, round. So they're the ones that make them. We just buy them, but they're our plants. So we plant them up, we put them in our water, we grow them on, and that's how we sell them. If you had a custom grow type situation where you want to pick your own plant palette, we're able to organize that too. So you can pick your own plants.
I have a customer that had a sort of a floating island that was, plastic, and, nothing really grew on it. And they were designed to sell as opposed to design work. Thank you.
Yeah, these are, I mean, you can hardly even see the island anymore. These are all one-year-olds, one-year-old islands on the right. And this is a 2-year-old. Any other questions? Questions?
What do you think of Blazing Star?
I love Blazing Star.
Okay. So I'd like to plant one this year.
Yeah, so here's a couple of them hanging out on this
Okay.
island here. The other name for it is Liatris, which is probably what I said here.
Oh, that's
Yep.
my thought.
So I probably said Liatris. The other name is Blazing Star.
Okay,
Another name is Gayfeather.
okay.
But there's a couple different species out there, ranging from 2 feet tall up to like 7. So you can pretty much pick whatever size you want.
Okay.
And there's a species for every soil condition you want, from sugar sand all the way to heavy clay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Asking this question for no particular reason, but most of the berries that you show are maybe not suggested to be, like if we were to find them out at the park, consumed, like maybe the dog would. I know you mentioned a lot of the ferns, but what about other elderberry is edible? You said service berry, but some of the other ones that you showed, I just want to clarify, like, are they edible to humans or not?
Yeah, great question. If you don't really know your berries, you should not be out eating berries while it's in the wild. You should also not let your dog be eating berries because they can get sick. Yeah, elderberry, serviceberry, American plum, cherry, all of those are edible by people. But every berry, just about, has evolved with a bird as its means of distribution. So all these berries are evolved to go through a bird digestive system, which is a lot faster and a lot less corrosive than a human digestive system. The seeds spend less time in there, and they're not hit with as much acid. A couple exceptions to that would be like blackberries. You know, the blackberries can go through a bear and still grow, or go through a human and still grow. Most berries are designed for birds. So yeah, really be sure if you're out there in the woods, know what you're doing before you just go and eat something.
We had a field trip incident last semester, not with any of these guys, but it was quite the experience. So.
Did someone eat a berry?
Oh,
What they eat?
do you guys remember what it was?
What was a grape?
Huh?
It was a grape.
A grape?
Well, they called it. It was some,
Are you talking about, wait, where were we again?
we found out it was okay, but we weren't sure.
Huh?
And he had them stashed in his jacket.
Yeah, there are wild grapes in Wisconsin. They're perfectly edible. but there's a lot of what I like to call grape mimics. The grape mimics look like grapes, but they aren't grapes. So you gotta be cautious of them. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm-